Just a quick intro of who we are and what we do. I'm the founder of Binary Defense and Trusted Sec, and both partners with Proven IT, and we help all of you folks become secure and protect against a lot of the latest and greatest threats you have out there. Over at Binary Defense, we have a 24/7 security operations center where we're monitoring for hackers breaking into your organization. And I think what you'll see today that's really important to understand is that a lot of the stuff that you're used to, like antivirus and other things like that, it's just not doing the job when it comes to protecting against attackers out there. Attackers get more and more sophisticated every single day. And our whole goal at Binary Defense is to minimize the damage towards your company. So as a breach occurs, making sure we can stop it as it's occurring and that it doesn't spread to the rest of your network. When you start to see some of these really large data breaches, look at Starwood and Marriott, for example. They had hackers in their environment for 4 years and they mistakenly found it where the Chinese government was actively monitoring where all of their people were staying, the hotel rooms that they were staying at, when they were staying there, putting surveillance pieces in there. Again, these large catastrophic breaches that we see out there originate and usually last for a long, long period of time. So our goal is to get it the day that it happens, the second that it happens, and really help you out with our team. And so we have an entire team dedicated to monitoring for your companies, very similar to like a physical security side with like an ADT. We monitor your computer systems to ensure that those systems aren't compromised and attacked. Over at Trusted Sec, we're kind of the breaker of things, is the best way to explain it. We break into computer systems. In fact, we do work with 3 of the Fortune 5 and about 70% of the Fortune 1000 companies out there, everything from small to medium-sized businesses. And we're hackers. We break into computer systems. We figure out ways to get access into systems and figure out ways that you can plug those security issues. My name is Dave Kennedy. I've been in this information security space for 19 years. I started my career off working for the NSA, doing cyber warfare activities. When you saw a lot of the shock and awe stuff happening on TV during the Iraqi war, I was part of that group that cracked the Iraqi cryptography and a lot of the other things that were going on during those periods of time and helped with our troop movements and helped out with a lot with the cyber warfare campaigns that we're doing out there. My area of expertise is figuring out ways to get into computer systems, which conversely makes me really good at securing computer systems. And so I did that for a number of years, got out, and I was the chief security officer for Diebold for a number of years, the manufacturer of ATMs. And ran their global security program, had a team of about 55 folks, and then decided one day that I wanted to go and start my own 2 companies, which we have Trusted Sec and Binary Defense. And now we have 250 folks, over 250 folks spread all across the world. We have people in Norway and the UK, California, you name it, folks here in Chicago, people all over the world trying to protect people from hackers. And that's really what our mission and our job is. Funny story, I've actually been in a Chris Brown rap video. Like legit in a Chris Brown rap video. Long story short, Chris Brown, his producer, contacted Trusted Sec and Binary Defense. This is about a year and a half ago. And then the name of the video, by the way, is not safe for work. So don't Google it at work. You might get in trouble. But it's called Post and Delete. It's very not safe for work. I'm just throwing that out. A lot of F-bombs and things like that. And so called Post and Delete. And it was funny because the producer's like, hey, we have this video called Post and Delete. And the whole premise behind it is that Chris Brown is basically dating this girl, and she only wants to do it for the fame, and so they end up breaking up. And Chris Brown wants to have his best friend Dave Hacker come in and delete all the photos off of her phone. So basically, I flew out to LA, and I got there at like 7 o'clock in the morning, and I left at like 11 o'clock at night. I was shot that entire time. And like literally, it's the weirdest thing ever, by the way, being in a video when there's a bunch of dancers doing flips behind you, and you're like literally in front of a keyboard hacking into somebody's phone. It's like the nerdiest yet coolest thing ever that I've ever experienced in my life. I'm like literally, in the video, I'm like, they're like, Dave, please stop bobbing your head. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. It was really, really weird, but a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun doing it. And it was funny with Chris Brown, which I'm going to do a similar thing that I did to Chris Brown. Chris Brown comes up to me and he taps me on the shoulder, and I'm like, whoa, it's Chris Brown. I'm like, hey, what's up, man? Like, nice to meet you. And he's like, hey, I heard you're like a hacker. He's like, and then of course you get like the weird stuff like, hey, can you hack into my girlfriend's account and things like that, just as a joke. And I'm like, well, I can hack you really quick. And I grabbed his full social security number, where he lived, his net worth, all this other stuff within like a couple seconds. And he wouldn't talk to me for like 3 hours after that. You just see a bunch of people in the corner like pointing at me with Chris Brown, and he'd be like going over there like telling the story, and he's like pointing at me like this, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, I can see you pointing at me, everybody. I'm not like this mysterious person over here. And then eventually he came back to me. He's like, he's like, when you show like a magic trick for the first time, he's like, man, I can't believe you did that. It was really freaking me out. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool, man. No problem. So that's a little bit of my story there. When we talk about cybersecurity today and what we do with Proven IT, it's a pretty amazing partnership, and we're glad to be a part of that. It's really, what I can say is that working with these folks are just an incredible team that you have here. day in and day out that are actively trying to protect you and with us behind them trying to help as well. And it's been a great relationship both with Proven IT, Trusted Second Binary Defense of keeping all of you folks safe out there. And I talked about what we do, but what's important to understand is that the attacks that are happening out there are changing all the time. You have attackers, like there's a new version of Emotet out there that's getting circumvented by Windows Defender right now. And Windows Defender rated one of the best antivirus products out there from Microsoft. Yet for us as hackers, it's very trivial for us to get around antivirus products. And so as an attacker, we know that you probably have antivirus in your systems, and so we develop sophistication around what we're doing to circumvent everything that you're doing. And that's our job to understand what those hackers are doing. It's our job to build something that can detect all of that and help you out real time. And it's our job to figure out what your risks and exposures are to really help your company. And so you look at a lot of these threats, and I'll talk about who these attackers are, because I think it's important to understand state-sponsored attackers like Iran and North Korea. Interesting enough, does anybody remember the name WannaCry? Everybody got freaked out by that a little bit, right? Because it shut down hospitals across the world. Does anybody know where WannaCry originated from? Who developed it? The NSA did. The NSA, we did, right? And the story behind that, which is really interesting, it's one of my favorite stories to kind of go through the history around how that happened. It's going to be in like our textbook social books when our kids go to school. And what happened is the NSA has a substantial amount of exploits and attacks that they use against other countries for intelligence gaining purposes. These are very super secret sensitive, very damaging pieces of code that are supposed to evade any type of modern security system out there today. It's basically skeleton keys to open up any computer that they want to and get access to anything they want to. It exists, and we proved it exists. And what happened is one of the folks that was working in the NSA with a really high-level top-secret clearance was bringing all of his work home. So he had all these exploits, all this code, all these super secret things that could literally topple entire governments, and brought it home and put it on his own personal computer at home. Even better, when he put it on his own personal computer at home, it was loaded with a Russian-based antivirus called Kaspersky. And somehow, all that code got to the Russian intelligence agency. Weird, right? So now all the Russians had all of our exploit code that we used to infiltrate every single organization, burned all of our ops going across the board. And now we were basically left without our cyber capabilities for a long period of time and had to rebuild all that. And by the way, just to give you an example of how much those cost us as taxpayers, one exploit that the NSA used costs around $10 to $15 million to develop. And they had a whole bunch of them. Right? And so we lost all those capabilities, and then Russia decided, hey, we're just going to screw the United States, and we're going to give all our exploit code out to everybody of the world and publish it out to the public. And then North Korea, it's like, cool, we're going to cause as much pandemonium and mayhem as possible and develop WannaCry and release it out to the public. So North Korea was actually involved with WannaCry. So you have all these different things happening all the time, and it's really hard to keep up with, but there's so many different demographics of hackers. You have nation states, which have some of the highest level of sophistications out there. You have organized crime, which typically operate out of Russia, by the way. And we can't extradite them. We might know who they are. It takes the FBI roughly 6 to 7 years to figure out who the actual hackers are if they're very, very lucky. And if they do, they're usually in the country that we can't extradite. And so these hackers are always out there. We can't really go after them or nab them in any way, shape, or form because the countries that we're going after are super hostile in nature to the United States and don't play well with us and don't play well with others. And so you look at ransomware as a very interesting piece, right? Because everybody's getting hit with ransomware right now. That's one of the areas that we absolutely focus on trying to defend against, right, to minimize your damage. We had a ransomware the other day, didn't have any of our software or anything like that on there. A ransomware the other day for a business. The hackers broke in, sat on their network for 3 weeks, 3 weeks undetected, deleted all their online backups, and then encrypted the entire company. And then asked $500,000 for ransom. And guess what that company has to do? Pay $500,000 ransom. They call us up. They're like, hey, do you happen to have $500,000 in Bitcoin by any chance? I'm like, what? No, I don't have $500,000 in Bitcoin. I got like a couple bucks in Bitcoin, but I don't have that much, in Bitcoin. So, these attackers are getting more and more sophisticated as things go on, and being able to take a company down and to be able to maximize the return value that they have is an absolute huge business model. These folks are making hundreds of millions of dollars on a regular basis. And I'll tell you what, their customer support is 10 times better than Time Warner Cable. You can get hit with ransomware and have no idea what Bitcoin is. You can call a number. It has a Russian accent in it. I'm like, yes, I can't do a Russian accent. I'm actually really terrible. I was going to try it for a second, and I lost my nerve on it. I'm not going to do a Russian accent. Yes, I know we're taking your money right now, but you still need to pay us the $500,000, and here's how you do it. And again, I apologize for your inconvenience, but you still need to pay us the $500,000, right? And it's amazing because these are full-fledged businesses. They have anywhere between 40 to 60 people working for them. They're making tons of money. The people that are actually operating and doing the hacking make nothing. All the people that are running, that's like a mob organization running a mob, they make all the money and they make a substantial amount of it, and they run with fear with the people that are actually working for them. The hackers that are working for them, like if you mess up, we're going to kill your family. So it's a crazy operation that we're seeing out there, and these folks are very technical. They're very advanced in what they're dealing with. There's also general hacking sites out there. Selling compromised accounts. One of the biggest things out there. Does anybody know how much your social security number is worth on the black market? Anybody know? Just throw out a number. It's like 3 cents right now. 3 cents. Your social security number is worth nothing in the grand scheme of things. Bulk social security number is worth nothing. If you have 100,000 social security numbers, you're making about $5 off of that, right? Social security numbers mean absolutely nothing. However, when you can start tying that to high net worth individuals and start doing things like tax fraud, for example, or you have patient healthcare information, you can do a procedure on behalf of somebody else. Now it starts to make more sense, and that money starts to rise up again. Real fast story, we had an executive from a really large financial institution, and they were using Google Business for apps, from Google Mail for business. And has anybody here flown Delta before? Anybody can flown a couple of people? It's not a bad thing. You can raise your hand. I'm not going to make fun of you flying Delta. I'm a United person. I hate it. I hate Delta too. I hate them all, right? Everybody seems happy on Southwest, though. I don't understand. But anyways, yeah, I don't know, whatever. And so with Delta specifically, when you book a flight with Delta, it sends you a calendar invite, right? And that calendar invite shows you exactly what your flight is. It'll say like, hey, you're flying through this location, then you have a delay over here, then you have a flight here, and this is the time that you land. They're very meticulous. It's very awesome to have that. United doesn't do that. I think they do, but it doesn't go to your Outlook right away. And so this high net worth individual out of Ohio was flying to LA. And so he gets on an airplane, gets off the airplane, goes to check his phone and his voicemail, and his phone isn't working. And he's like, that's weird, no service. Maybe I'm just in a bad spot or something like that. Gets to his hotel, no service. That's weird. Calls up Verizon. He's like, Verizon, hey, I'm trying to use my phone and it just keeps giving me no service. And I was calling Bob. He's like, Bob, I'm sorry, you ported your phone number over about 5 hours ago to T-Mobile. He's like, what? I didn't port my phone number over to T-Mobile. So what had happened was that Bob's corporate email account had been compromised. And what the hackers had done is they looked at his emails and they saw that his financial statements were being delivered once a month to his location. When you compromise somebody and you have access to their email, what's the other form of verification you typically need to reset your password in your bank? Your text message, right? And so within that 5 hours that he was traveling, they had drained his bank accounts. Gone. 5 hours, meticulously planned. These hackers are very good at what they do. Now, luckily, in some cases, you can recover. And he's able to recover about 60% of the funds he lost, but he still lost 40%. So big issue there. Business email compromise, if you're not familiar with those right now, another big one, where hackers will claim to be the CEO of your company. And they'll say, hey, this is a super secret merger and acquisition. Do not tell anybody about this. And they'll tell somebody in finance. And you're like, hey, you need to wire out $200,000 to this location. And again, do not tell anybody. This is super secret. Nobody can know about it. It's going to mess up our stock and everything else, blah, blah, blah. And then they'll wire out money. Conversely, enough with that, if you wire out money, you have a 72-hour window to retrieve that money. And what I'd recommend is if you ever get hit with one of those, contact the FBI immediately or contact your local bank immediately to recover those. Even though you're transferring it internationally, it's usually going to Hong Kong. You have about a 72-hour window. The money's not actually there, even though it might be represented as the money taken out in there. There's about a 72-hour period there. Another variance of this, by the way, which is very successful, is that hackers will break into a trusted third party that you're working with in their finance division. And so what they'll say is they'll comb their email looking for people that they have outstanding invoices for to make payments for, and they'll actually establish communication with that person saying, hey, you owe us $10,000. Here's the invoice for it on our letterhead, but now go to this bank account in this location because we switched banks. Then they wire the money out, and all of a sudden now you're out of that money, right? And it's on the fault of the third party that's compromised because it's them sending actual emails to you saying, hey, we're just following instructions. But again, lots and lots of money being yielded from this specific area. One of the biggest challenges that we have in cybersecurity, period, is people, by far. People are crazy, right? I'll give you a funny example. My pastor for my church, by the way, I have the most secure church in Ohio, probably in the world. I run all of our IT for our church in Ohio, and it's like a 100-person shop, and I think our pastor has to give like a hair follicle sample to log in his machine. And so, it's locked down, like two-factor. Like we have an Active Directory forest with we're using the Red Forest model with network segmentation for a 100-person church. And so my pastor knows, like, if something happens, he calls me because I run the infrastructure there, right? It's locked down, it's secure, and everything else. And as much training as you can do for people, people still err. My pastor calls me one day, this is recently, it was a couple weeks ago, and he's like, hey, Dave, I'm like, what's up, man? He's like, I messed up, man. I messed up bad. I go, well, what happened? What's going on? He's like, Microsoft called me. And they said that my license key had expired and that my antivirus was infected with 700 viruses. I'm like, stop right there. I'm like, did you give me your credit card? I'm like, come on, man, I taught you all this stuff. I spent a lot of time with you. You were pretty bad at computers. I was getting kind of a good feeling with you. I even switched you over to a Mac. And you have a Mac, and it's Windows calling you. Like, it's not even the same operating system, man. I taught you this. I'm like, come on, I taught you. So he's like, I'm like, okay, what's up? He's like, okay, I'm like, change your credit card. And he's like, yeah, my computer doesn't boot up anymore either. I'm like, all right, I'll be over in 5 minutes. So people become really challenging, right? It's one of those things where like we have to really watch people, and one person is an entire downfall of an entire company. Think about it. We want to build a castle, right? We want to build a castle with these heavily fortified walls and archers and drawbridges and everything else to stop these hackers. We have people inspecting everybody else. Well, what happens if somebody from inside the courtyard walks out of the moat and says, hey, come on in, he's cool, he's good. The guy's like wearing like, he's a Viking, he's gonna kill everybody inside the courtroom, right? You walk him in, he's fine, he's good, come on in. He's cool, I can vouch for him. Comes in, goes to the king, and everything else is compromised, right? One person can be a downfall of an entire company. And think about it. If I compromise Bob in sales, not to pick on sales, but I compromise Bob in sales, and salespeople, by the way, my favorite to hack. It really is. You can be like, hey, listen, I'm going to give you a sale if you click on this virus.exe. I've had salespeople actually troubleshoot me through their antivirus before. Like, my antivirus is picking this up. I'm like, oh, that's weird. I'm like, right-click and disable. It's fine. Like, oh, that's easy. Okay, that's weird. So sorry for the inconvenience. I'm like, oh, it's no problem. It's fine. It's fine. It's probably something on your end. Funny story about hacking people. I was doing one recently for a manufacturing company, and they were like, hey, 50 years in business being a manufacturing company, a very, very large manufacturing company. And on their website, they were so proud of being in 50 years, they skinned their whole website, being a 50 years American-based company. I'm saying 50 years as a generalization so you can't figure out who they are. And so I sent an email to the corporate communications person. I said, listen, hey, my name's so-and-so. I'm from the Wire News Network. We want to do a huge story on you on the news about how awesome your company is being in business for 50 years. And I got an email back like almost immediately from the corporate communications person, like, oh, we'd love to do a story. Here's some information about our company. And I actually wasn't trying to fish her. I just wanted to see what her email looked like, right? So her email was like nice and formatted, right? The disclaimer messages, the warning messages that you get when you send emails. I wanted to see the fonts that they used. And then what I did is it was right around the same time that the iPhone 11 was coming out, just a few weeks ago, right? And the iPhone 11 was coming out, and it was all this hype around the iPhone 11, especially the Pro Max, like the one I got with the 3 cameras and everything. I don't know what's the difference, but it looks cool. And so so I decided to send an email to one person in IT because I needed access to that person's computer because I knew that person had access to their special system that had intellectual property around their next generation product I needed to get access to. And the person put it all over LinkedIn, like, oh, I'm part of the special projects group in R&D at this company. And I'm like, sweet, I'm going after him. And so I sent him an email from the corporate communications person saying, oh my gosh, we're so excited about this company being in business for 50 years. We're giving away 50 free iPhones to the first 50 people, but I only sent to one person. And immediately that person in IT clicks on it, enters in their username and password, and then we have something on the back end that would get code execution onto their system. It basically compromised their system, right? And so we compromised their system, and I have full access. And I'm like, I'm in. This was the best, easiest fish that I've ever done in my life. But then all of a sudden, I started seeing more people enter in their credentials, like pop, pop, pop. There was like 100 people. It's like 200 people. It's like 300 people. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? So his friend forwarded to his other friend, his friend forwarded to his other friend, and it got out. And so the whole company's like, I want free iPhones. And so everybody's getting free iPhones. It's raining free iPhones, right? Which is bad for us because all of a sudden now, their incident response team got a wind of it, like, this isn't real, this is a fish, and they block us. So I lost everything. I'm like, this sucks. What happened? So they blocked the website that I was going to. They blocked our command and control infrastructure that we use to get all of our information out, but they forgot to block the email address. So the very next day, I get an email from marketing. Hey, my stupid IT people blocked this site for this free iPhone. Is there any way I can still get this? I'm like, sure, just go over here. Right? Another really fast, funny story too. I was hacking another company, insurance company, and they had two-factor authentication in place. Everybody familiar with two-factor authentication, right? And so I guessed their password. It was like summer 2019 or something like that. It's fall, I'm sorry, it's fall 2019, they changed it. Super complex. When they changed that password, we got access to the account. So we went to go log into the VPN, and we type in the username and password, and then we hit with, it was Duo Security at the time. They have Duo Security, if you're not familiar with the two-factor authentication. They have a thing called push notifications. Are you familiar with that, where it pushes to your phone, you can hit approve or deny? And so we're coming from Ohio, we're hacking a company in Texas. And so it says, logging in from Ohio, do you want to approve or deny this? So when I log in, I'm like, oh crap, we're busted. I'm gonna have to figure out another password to get into this place. And so I walk away, I go get a bourbon because it's gonna be a late night. And I come back and I'm logged in. I'm like, what? Why am I logged in? It's two-factor authentication. Like, what? That's weird. Maybe it was a tech issue. Maybe they configured their two-factor authentication. I start looking through the code. I'm looking at everything, like, everything looks fine here. So the interview, and the person that I logged into was like, well, I thought I was logging in from somewhere. I don't know. So I just hit approve. I'm like, okay. This is what we deal with on a regular basis, folks. So what I'm trying to explain here is that understanding attackers and the methods they operate by take a lot of time and effort. It requires us to have an entire team understanding what hackers are doing on a regular basis. When new variations and things come out, being able to build certain things out, and understanding it takes a long time. And if an attacker does something that is unique or custom, it largely goes undetected, which means that your traditional software isn't going to detect it. And I want to show you an example of this, okay? I'm going to do a live demo here. And the technique I'm going to use here is a very well-known attack vector that hackers use to get access. In fact, the latest version of Emotet and a lot of others are leveraging the same type of capabilities for this right now, ransomware campaigns. And I want to explain to you that when you look at certain breach statistics here, let me get this going here. When you look at certain breach statistics, it should be black here in a second. It'll come back up. It's Windows. It takes a little bit. There we go. Okay, thank you, Windows. One sec. It is password, actually. This is my demo machine. So, but I have a little @ and a couple 5s, so no one's ever going to guess that at all, ever. And so with specific types of attacks, there are attacks out there that are very, very hard to detect. And what I mean by that is that you traditionally see like executables and binaries as kind of a main method for infection, right? Other things are PowerShell, for example. In fact, I have the claim to fame of being the very first ever PowerShell security talk that I gave at DEF CON a number of years ago, the largest hacker conference out there. A lot of folks at Microsoft call me the king, or not the king, but the father of PowerShell security. I got to do a lot of research on PowerShell before anybody else did, and it was like, whoa, this is really powerful. And attackers use that pretty heavily. One of the newer trends that are out there today is that Windows is an operating system, right? It has applications that make it work, like Calculator, for example, Word, Office, Excel, all these applications that we use in our daily lives. And so all of these are code signed by Microsoft. It means they're legitimately code signed, which means that Microsoft validates and vouches for all the code that's in there. And so a lot of these applications have additional functionality in them that allow for what we call remote code execution, which means they give you access into the system. There's about 77 of these right now that ship with Microsoft out of the gate that allow hackers to essentially run code on your system without any types of checks or boundaries whatsoever. And so Microsoft tries to kind of keep up with these, but it's very difficult because they are legitimate Windows applications. If you can see the screen here, and is it hard to see? Can you see it, or do I need to make it a little bit bigger? I can make it a little bit bigger. You good? Make it a little bit bigger. I think I can make it bigger. It is Windows, so we'll see. Yes, I can. Okay, one second. Make it just a little bit bigger. Go to 36. So this specific command here is a very bad, just this command right here can compromise an entire company. And so what will happen a lot of times is they'll open up a document, for example. That document will contain like an Excel macro, for example. And that macro then will call something like this, okay? And this is a specific binary that's in your System32 directory called regsvr32. It's in everybody's operating system. Everybody has it installed on their machines. And what it can do is it has its own browser, it's proxy aware, and it can go out to the internet directly and download code and execute onto the system without ever checking anything whatsoever. It's very, very notorious. It's used very, very heavily by a lot of ransomware campaigns. But if you're looking at something like Windows Defender, a good example of what is basic versus very sophisticated levels of changing things, let's run this command really quick. And what this is going to do is going to go to trustsec.com as an example, and it's going to go and download this file, which contains all my malware, but it's never going to write it to disk, so nothing's ever going to scan it. When I run this command, watch what happens. I get an access is denied, and antivirus picks it up, right, as being bad. Great, fantastic. Well, if I'm a hacker, I know that I don't typically use stuff out of the box and I need to change my code in some way, shape, or form to get around antivirus because I know people have antivirus out there, right? So what if I do something really highly sophisticated and I throw this little caret in here? Now, if you don't know anything about command line syntax, a caret is basically a null character. It doesn't do anything. So I throw a little caret in there, which is, again, I'm being a super sophisticated hacker here by throwing a little caret into my command prompt here. And watch what happens. I still get denied. Oh, man. What happens if I throw 2 carets in there? Still denied. What if I throw 3 carets in there? Voila. Works fine, no problem. Very basic techniques to get around basic antivirus today. And that's that's literally what's defending our networks right now. We as hackers understand that you have basic antivirus and you get caught by basic script kiddies, but if you elevate to just a little bit of throwing some carets in there, you're good, right? No issue to get around what we see today. 3 carets, by the way. That's what it took, 3 carets. What's that? That's what 3 carets. Sometimes 4 or 5 carets if you're getting real crazy with it. But other than that, I've never seen any more than 5 carets, to be honest with you. And so you look at some breach statistics. We analyzed a lot of the different breaches from last year, over 17,000 code execution samples. And still prominently, 82% of those are executables. 13% of them are PowerShell. And then the other 4% is living off what we call living off the land binary scripts, those applications that I talked about that allow you to get additional code execution. So those are definitely on the uptick, and a lot of the more sophisticated hackers are doing those. Nation states, by the way, Russia, for example, one of the most notorious for using those types of techniques for getting access into corporations, and ones that we're completely blind by for every organization. Some stats out there, breakout time frames. To break out of a environment, when I talk about breaking out, when I compromised Bob in sales, when I hacked Bob in sales, it took on average about 1 hour and 40 minutes to move to the next machine and to get access to the person that I actually need interest of. Let's just say it's a person in IT that has access to all of your data. So when I compromise Bob, Bob's probably not going to have all of your intellectual property and sensitive data. I'm going to need to go to different systems to get access to the data that I need. It's what we call lateral movement. And so once I compromise Bob, I need to now go to Mary in IT. Mary in IT now has access to the servers that have access to all my data that I need access to. And so that takes about 1 hour and 40 minutes for a hacker to do that. It's not a lot of time to respond to a specific threat out there. And what's interesting is if you look at what attackers are doing today, they're hacking sophisticated companies, less sophisticated companies on an elevated rate. We're seeing an uptick in all these different areas. Business email compromise, just as an example, up 312% from last year. Crazy, crazy. Lots of money to be made right now. What's nice is what we work on and understand are the behaviors for attackers and understanding and focusing and building those out into identifying those earlier on. So that's what we do. Now, I want to show you just some examples of what we actually do on a regular basis. So this is our product called Vision. And this is not a sales pitch. I'm just showing you what we do on a regular basis. We monitor companies all at a given time. And what's interesting is we have a whole group called Threat Intelligence. And the person that actually runs our Threat Intelligence program was one of the lead operators from the FBI on their cyber division there and busted a lot of the bad folks that you see out there today. And they're constantly infiltrating hacker organizations. They're basically going into hacking groups and finding out who they are, what they're doing, and how they're doing it, and making sure that we can detect that for our customers, right? And we also work with law enforcement. We've gotten a lot of bad folks off the street as well by researching these groups and infiltrating them and working with them. We have entire teams that pretend to be hackers and pretend to be bad folks and buying credentials and buying information to go and help them. That all kind of goes back into our piece here. And then we monitor for unusual activity. So we look for specific things happening in an environment to say, hey, this is unusual. This behavior that we're seeing out there, this person hasn't done before. Why are they using regsvr32 to communicate out to the internet in the first place? That's very unusual. Let's move this machine off of the network so it doesn't impact the rest of the company. Or let's just block it right off and don't allow it to execute in the first place. So having people that can actually go and do it day in and day out really makes a big difference. So, what I'll say is that what's interesting about the industry verticals we work in is that every industry is not alone. Everybody's facing the same threats that we find in cybersecurity. Whether you're in financial, whether you're in, whether you're in retail, whether you're in manufacturing, whether you're in healthcare, whether you're in anywhere. We have small, tiny shops getting hacked. We have large organizations getting hacked on a regular basis. This is a fight that we're all trying to fight together to make it better. There are companies out there doing an amazing job. In fact, there was one customer of ours recently, a financial institution that we were working back and forth, and we do something called what's called adversary emulation, where we emulate from more sophisticated customers in the security programs. we emulate real-time nation states. And so we have a research division that builds weapons and exploits and tools that shouldn't be detected. And we spent 6 months breaking into this one financial institution, which was awesome. We broke into them. We finally had access to this person's computer we'd been spending 6 months on of developing these weapons and tools for. And within 7 minutes, they shut us down. And what was interesting is we're like, how was that even possible? Like everything that we did was 0 day. Everything we did was you're not supposed to detect us. What happened? And what was funny about that one specifically is that they had baselined all of their users into 2 different categories. One being technical folks and one being non-technical folks. And they had seen us use a command called ipconfig, which is to look at the IP address of a specific host. And it was for somebody that was non-technical, and it triggered an alarm saying, this person's issuing an ipconfig. Why is it? That's weird. And we got busted. Just something simple like that totally threw off 6 months worth of work. And it was horrible because we're on the phone with the customer and their entire team's clapping. And we're all like sipping bourbon and listening to Careless Whispers in our room, like sobbing and crying because we just got busted for 6 months worth of work. So, it is possible to stop a lot of these different things out there. But in closing, I just want to say that, and I'm going to do a live hack here in just a second. In closing, what we really try to do here and with Proven IT, and you have a great group of folks here and amazing customers, is really try to protect you against these latest threats out there towards your businesses and enterprises. This is what we really focus on. And our team there are people that I've worked with my entire career. I'm very, I wish I could show the one video, but the folks that we have here are just absolutely amazing. They work really hard to protect everybody. I appreciate it. So thank you, but I'm going to do a demo here really quick. I'm going to unplug this so nobody can see my screen and show a bunch of weird stuff about somebody I'm about to hack. Give me 1 second here to get set up. All right, what else we got here? Hang on. Oh, okay, got it. Hang on a second. You live in Tinley now? Is that right? Yeah, okay, yeah. And there's your address right there, so I found it. Here.
Hold on. Let's see now. That one's right.
Yeah? All right.
You're missing a kid.
Well, I can't do everything. I mean, no, but that was it. Thank you so much. What's that? Oh, yeah, I'll get rid of it. Here. Done. Gone. Don't remember. Thank you so much. Everybody give a round of applause here real quick. So what I pulled, we didn't plan this ahead of time. I've never met you before, right, ma'am? Annette?
What?
I never met you before, right? And so I didn't pre-arrange this in any way, shape, or form, right?
No, but I felt like Stump the Schwab. It was kind of cool.
I mean, for a couple seconds, I got the rest of it, but then, yeah.
That was impressive.
Thank you. But I got our full social security number, date of birth, driver's license, address, all those different things, phone numbers, things like that I would need to do whatever I need to, right? And what's interesting about that, and why I was able to do that, is that your information is sold all the time across a lot of different areas that most folks don't even realize. Social security numbers were never supposed to be a protection mechanism for anybody whatsoever, but we use it for that. What's funny about businesses, by the way, is you can call somebody on the phone and ask for anything sensitive about the company as long as you got a decent pretext, but as soon as you ask them about their social security number, like, I don't think you're who you say you are, and they hang up on you, right? And yet, social security number is like the easiest thing for us to get. And what's interesting is that if I call you up, and I'm like, hey, this is so-and-so from Bank of America. The last 4 of your social is 1111, and that's your social security number. What are you going to do? You can have immediate trust for that person, right? Because they have some sort of data on you. Like, hey, I need you, we're having some issues with your bank account. What's your password? We're logging you in, all that stuff, right? Might actually do it if you have some sort of person's personal information. So be really careful about the type of information you actually put out there. Does anybody have any questions before I get off? Any questions? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Sandboxing, whitelisting.
Yeah.
Is that harder to get through?
To some extent. So I'm a huge fan of application whitelisting and application control because you can minimize a lot of the things that run on your system. And whenever you can reduce your attack surface, you can monitor for those deviations that occur on there. So I'm a huge fan of application whitelisting. Sandboxing, to some extent, there's a lot of ways to do sandbox breakouts or fool the technology into thinking that it isn't bad and still give you full access. And a lot of the newer ransomware campaigns actually do that. So like a lot of the SMTP or mail gateway sandbox virtualization technology, what happens when a lot of malware comes in, it'll say, am I running in a sandbox? It'll check the CPU counts. It'll see how much RAM is allocated to it. It'll actually profile the device itself prior to it actually detonating the malware. And so then the sandbox technology is like, oh, it's fine. It's not doing anything because it'll shut down if it detects it's in there and then sends it off to the recipient. And so a lot of times sandboxing is pretty easy to circumvent, but I do like application whitelisting quite a bit. Good question. Yes, sir.
Question about two-factor.
Yep.
Do you think we're going to see a move towards authenticator apps away from
Yeah, that's a good
text
question.
messaging?
Yeah, the question was, do you think you'll see a shift away from Oh man, and that's getting crazy over there. Jeez.
Because you made fun of Bob.
The question is, are we going to see a shift away from like the SMS text messages and push notifications more towards an authenticator app? And that's absolutely the way that we need to move as an industry. The text message and push notification that we have are super, super, super insecure. Do not recommend them at all. I do recommend those authenticator apps. And I think as an industry, it'll take time. The problem is that we had to fight and claw our way to get two-factor authentication in the first place. And so we tried to use what was as easy as possible to do it. And now we have to go back and say, well, it wasn't good enough. We need to do this now. You need to download an app across everybody. So it's going to be like another 5-year fight. But it will happen, and it needs to happen. And there are groups already. There's some very good groups out there that are incorporating two-factor authentication into their phishing campaigns. So what'll happen is you send them an email, they log in the username and password, they submit that password automatically on behalf of that because they're already in the middle, and then they ask you for the two-factor authentication code. And then from there, you actually get that code and you push it through, which is well. So there are groups out there already circumventing two-factor authentication. Now, I don't want to say two-factor authentication is a great thing. You should absolutely have it. You have to have it today. But it's one of those things where you can implement it much better with something like an authenticator app or those different types of areas. Good question. Any other questions out there? Happy to answer. Yeah, yes, sir.
See the video, is this going to be available? We can share it with our employees, et cetera?
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't know what the folks at Proven IT, but they're recording the video right now, and I'm sure I can say, yeah, I'm sure we can give it out to folks to add to your. I'm not sure. Yeah, they're saying, yeah, go for it. So yeah, there you go. And see if you can give it to your employees. Yeah, happy to do it. And one thing to note as well is I'm always happy to come out and speak to employees as well. So if you ever need me to come talk and make some jokes and crack some jokes and stuff like that, just let me know. As long as it's jeans and t-shirt. I really hate wearing suits. I have a 1 suit a week minimum or a maximum. So you have to catch me either in that week where I haven't worn a suit or I get to wear jeans and t-shirts as part of my rider. So that's the only thing that I hate wearing suits. So.
I know this is more business related. Is there anything that you recommend for personal?
For personal, great question. So the question was, what do you recommend for personal? One thing, there's a couple of things that I recommend for personal. One, implementing two-factor authentication across the board. 2, password vaults are great. Using something like LastPass, KeyPass, 1Password, those types of ones to centralize a lot of your password management. A huge advocate of that, not using passwords across the board. If you're not familiar with password vaults, they sync to your phone, they sync to your computer, everything else. They're all encrypted with advanced encryption standard typically, and allow you to basically sync your passwords into a location where you don't ever have to remember them or type them in. That's really, really important. So that's one specific area. With Windows 10, honestly, I would focus primarily on just leveraging what you have out of the box with Windows Defender and everything else. It's about as good as you get from a home grade perspective. I wouldn't really pay a substantial amount for anything else outside of that. And I would just be careful of what you do and what you download. Be careful of anything you get from an email perspective. With two-factor authentication, those things are good. In fact, I can show you really quick. I swear I can hack into any computer system in the world, but when it comes to getting PowerPoints to work properly, I always struggle. It's the weirdest thing ever. Okay. A Mr. Robot is probably one of the most accurate portrayals of what hackers can actively do. If you're interested in hacking and don't understand a lot of this, the TV show itself actually employs hackers to work on the show to depict real-life hacks that could happen in real life. And it's a very, very accurate portrayal of everything that we see in today, from being able to hack smartphones to getting access to a big corporation and being able to bring them to their knees from a cyber perspective. So what's the top 5 things that you can do to make yourself more secure both at your business and your home? Number 1, use two-factor authentication or two-step verification everywhere that you can. Your banking systems, Twitter, Facebook, all support the ability for you to enable an additional security feature that you may not know. You go to your settings, it's in there, you can enable it, and every time that you log in, it'll register your computer, and you can then get a text message to go into that system as a second form of verification. Why that's important is because if a hacker gets access to your password, they still have to have access to your phone to get access to your account. And that's really important by enabling that specific security step, probably number 1. Number 2, don't use the same password everywhere. I know it's hard, but using the same password everywhere is one of probably the easiest ways that we break in as hackers. So if you have the same Twitter password, the same banking information, those are things that can get you in some serious trouble. Number 3, make sure that you stay up to date. Those security patches. Every time you have a Windows update that says, hey, I need to update your computer, it's usually to fix a known attack that hackers have figured out to get access to your computer. So keep up to date. Whether you're using a Mac, they aren't impervious to attack, or using Windows, same thing, update your systems. That's the most important thing. Always keep up to date with what you're having out there. Same thing for third-party applications. If you're using Java, Adobe, PDFs, Office documents, Those are all things that you want to keep up to date, and that makes it much harder for us as hackers to break into your system. Number 4, social media. Be careful with how much information you actually put online. We as attackers can look at that. Look at what you do, your spending habits, what you might be doing from a day-to-day perspective, going and buying Starbucks at a certain location. Those are all things that we can use to identify when you're going to be out of the country or when you're going to be at a business meeting. We can use that as a method to attack you. One of the main things that we do as hackers, especially when it comes to social engineering, is we create a sense of urgency. Something that you're familiar with, but you have to take action upon. So let's just say, for example, I'm a Verizon customer and I have an Amazon package that's getting delivered. Well, if I, as an attacker, know an Amazon package is getting delivered, sending a text message from a Verizon customer support service line coming from Amazon saying, hey, your package is being rerouted, you need to log into the site to get it delivered again, is something that an attacker can use. So those are things that attackers can leverage is urgency, how you actually operate, and all that information that you post online are things that we can use as attacks. And last but not least, personal information. That's one of the biggest things that attackers can leverage to get access to your data. Things like social security numbers, your credit card numbers. A person is not going to call you on the phone from a banking service and ask you for that type of information. So whenever you get a call that's too good to be true, or a call that is a fraud services line, call them back. Look at the number on the website themselves and call it back. Because a lot of times attackers will impersonate financial services, they'll impersonate different organizations to try to get your personal information and use that to be able to make fraudulent charges. So that was it. That was it. Top 5 things that I would say out there. Interesting enough for that Katie Couric show, the way I was able to hack her is that on her Facebook page, she had you know how you can send it to like just your friends or everybody? She had everybody. It was around Christmas time, and she was basically waiting for an Amazon package for her kids to get delivered for Christmas, and she posted it to everybody. And so I just sent her a message from Amazon saying, hey, your package is going to be late unless you pay for the expedited shipping for your whatever. And so she clicked on the link, and then I hacked her computer, and then I spied on her house. I had her daughter walking through the house and everything. Totally freaked her out, which is, I felt like a horrible person afterwards, by the way. Like when you're up there, like Katie Couric's like, hey, I want you to hack. And you're like, yeah, I'm going to hack into her. I'm going to steal all of her information. And then you see her face. You're like, man, I'm a terrible, terrible person. I actually still help her out with all of her IT stuff, to be honest with you. I feel really bad. So thank you very much all for having me. Proven IT, thank you so much for having me. Thank you all.